YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back. Only a couple days away to the 2022 NFL Draft. A lot of rumors leaking out there. Some of it's smoke, some of it all could be smoke, actually. But I'm here to break down 10 potential surprising picks that I could see happening during day one of the NFL Draft. Not predicting all these to happen. I think they're realistic, surprising picks. Always off-the-wall picks, always surprising picks. No one ever thinks their team's going to be the one to do it. So I'm excited to break this down here and excited to see what happens day one of the NFL Draft. We'll be live here on YouTube during day one, and we'll live tweet each pick and my thoughts day 2 and day 3. So join us here. Like, subscribe, turn notifications on, and follow us on Twitter. Link down below for anything you're looking for there. Here's our Twitter. Just a lot of updates here. We asked you guys the same question. What surprise picks? Where was it? Right there. What are some surprise picks that you guys can see? A lot of comments on there. Love to see it. But starting with the Texans, third overall. So this is one that we kind of been hearing. Just keep hearing that the Texans could take Derek Stingley, but kind of going even further. Keep hearing that it's pretty obvious that they've done extensive work, meeting with Derek Stingley, watching film, showing extreme interest here. So a possibility third overall here. And it would surprise a lot of us, even though that we're hearing it now. It would still surprise us. Kind of, last year some surprising picks: Jamin Davis, Zaven Collins. We started to hear it like a couple days before, but it's even though we heard about it, prepared for it, still surprised us. This one really surprised me. Still, it sounds like it's very realistic. Keep hearing it. That's a possibility, but. Do they take a corner third overall in general? Do they take Stingley over Ahmad Gardner? We hear that Stingley really fits Lovie Smith's scheme. I don't know if he really does. A lot of cover two. Stingley, a man corner. Does he, I'd say a man corners typically fit cover two. I just don't see why Ahmad Gardner wouldn't fit more and is arguably the better prospect right now as well. So, we'll see. That would be pretty wild. Third overall would really throw some people off. It does sound like a tackle is very realistic at this point, but I know the fans, just based off mocks that I've done, I think most the fan-base Texans probably would be surprised with the tackle, but we will see what they do. And then the pick right after that could have a surprise pick based on what we're hearing, the recent news buzz. Jermaine Johnson could go fourth overall to the New York Jets, which would be a little bit of a surprise. If they go pass rusher, you would kind of hope that maybe Kayvon Thibodeaux, because he's the best fit, best player available, it would just make a lot of sense. And Jermaine Johnson going fourth overall, he's climbed up the board during this process, but going fourth overall is a good player, but it's pretty early. It's pretty early, I think, in all of our opinions. Not that it would be a very bad pick or anything like that, but just starting to hear from credible people that it's very, very realistic. So that's a little wild. It's kind of maybe a must-have guy for the Jets. They don't want to wait till 10. So, I'm still deciding what I'm going to do on my final mock, but it sounds like this is a very realistic possibility. I can't say this is what I would predict right now, though. It's tough. Because, I guess will for sure Hudson and Walker be gone. So then you're choosing between Johnson and Thibodeaux. They've been linked to Gardner. They've been linked to a couple offensive linemen as well. So it'll be very interesting to see what the Jets do. Next, 6th overall, Matt Corral. This one really surprised me, but just keep hearing it. The Panthers like Matt Corral. They really like his upside. Talk about, the best thing about Matt Corral is probably his quick release, which we know NFL teams fall in love with the, throwing motion and releases on these quarterbacks. So they've done their homework on quarterbacks. It came out today that Fritterer, their GM, says there's potentially multiple quarterbacks that they think are worth the 6th overall pick. It could be smoke. But he also said he's looking to, there's teams trying to trade up. They could trade back. That could be smoke to trick teams into thinking they're not taking a quarterback, so they don't trade up ahead of them. You just keep hearing them all of a sudden the last week or so being linked to Matt Corral. So start to think it's a possibility. I'm still on the train of they're not going to go quarterback, but if they have the first choice of the quarterbacks here at 6 overall, with them doing all the homework that they've done, you'd think it's a possibility here. But I'm still thinking they want a lineman possibly or trade back, get more picks. They don't have those day 2 picks, but would be pretty wild if they took Corral 6th overall. 9th overall, Trevor Penning could possibly go there I know some people have talked about that, so maybe it wouldn't be insanely shocking. It kind of is to me, though, but it's realistic at the same time. The Seahawks are very desperate for tackles. The top 3 guys could be off the board. I mean, right now they need 2 starting tackles, a left and a right. So if the top 3 guys are off the board, could they take Penning 9th overall? Could they try to trade back? Is that a possibility as well? But yeah, I've heard Penning linked to Seattle, and it's pretty early for Penning in my opinion. But it's a surprising but realistic one here. Jumping to 17th overall, the Chargers. How about Zion Johnson from Boston College? I definitely could see this during this whole process. There was no mention of this, but there was no mention of the Chargers needing an interior offensive lineman. When they do, it's kind of been hidden a little bit. Maybe because they need a tackle, another receiver, maybe some defensive players, but they can definitely use an interior offensive lineman. I think they'll like Zion Johnson, him being a high character guy, very smart, plug and play starter, a guy that can play center or tackle if they need him to as well. They probably won't need him playing center, but very likely starting at guard. So this is one that just hasn't been mentioned at all, so it would surprise a lot of people. Maybe it's not the sexiest pick if you're the Chargers fan, so maybe you say, it's not going to happen because of that. But this is one that I might actually have in my final mock. I think this is actually pretty realistic, and it's just weird that somehow during this process it's been kind of put out there that not put out there that the Chargers need a guard. They could definitely use one here, so very interesting. Next up, Steelers at 20. Haven't heard anything on this. It's just kind of my feeling here. Quay Walker, and it's not that it's my prediction, it might be when it's all said and done. Quay Walker, the Georgia linebacker to the Steelers, they did some work on him. They had a private visit with him, so I found that interesting, which, I mean, every team has visits with a lot of players, but the connection may be there. And the Steelers are linking quarterbacks. Everyone's linking quarterbacks to the Steelers. They got to be taking a quarterback, right? And I think and that could be my prediction still at the end, because the quarterbacks could fall in their lap, because I think they're not going to go as early as we once thought, but who knows? So that could be my final prediction. But last year they just could not stop the run, specifically from the linebacker position. They get rid of Schobert, and Devin Bush was a liability against the run as well, which was surprising. They add Miles Jack. No guarantee there, but they feel highly about him. Devin Bush, are they going to pick up the 5th-year option? They could be done with them after this year. So you go get a polished, run-stopping linebacker with a lot of upside because of his freaky traits, athleticism, and a lot of upside in terms of his coverage ability as well. So this kind of just brings the Steelers back. A big reason why the Steelers defense took a big step down. They've had some injuries, and they ran things a little differently, but it started with not being able to stop the run. You had to change things because of that. So if you can't stop the run, your defense isn't going to be good, really. So kind of get the Steelers back on track here with the run-stopping linebacker, and then the future could be possibly Walker and Miles Jack. So just not talked about at all, really. 23rd, the Cardinals, George Karlaftis. I heard yesterday that they may just go with the best available pass rusher at 23. That could be smoke, and then George Karlaftis, why that would be surprised. It wouldn't be surprising for them to go pass rusher because they need one. Why Karlaftis would be surprising, it's just, the Cardinals run a 3-4. Karlaftis' body type, people would be surprised by that. Could he fit that? Does he fit more of a 4-3 end? And he probably does fit more of a 4-3 end, but he had a lot of time standing up and rushing, which would fit the Cardinals. Didn't really think Zaven Collins was a great fit. Either they took him, which was one of the surprising picks last year, so this could be a team that makes just surprising picks. I wouldn't really disagree at all with this pick. It's just not one that looks like a fit probably to most people, and not one that people are mocking or expecting, so it could be a surprise. But this is one that I think is a very realistic, somewhat surprise. 25th, the Bills, Breece Hall. They did some homework on him. They've been looking for more running backs. They don't have a lot of needs, so just kind of go big or go home when it comes to these running backs. And Breece Hall, the top one in the class, a very balanced back, and make the Bills better right away. And this one was not only my thought, but I think a lot of other fans' thoughts out there that this could be a surprise one. But now it's starting to kind of get leaked out there as well as draft week started, that this is actually a possibility. They did their homework on him as well. So this other one, it's a kind of a very realistic but somewhat surprising as well, because does somebody take a running back in the first round? Do the Bills go running back over corner or offensive lineman, whatever it may be? I think it's pretty realistic here. This is a player I really wanted to include in this video, Logan Hall. I think there's a number of spots he can go. This is going to be the guy that I think could end up going a lot earlier than people think. I think I wouldn't really shock me if he went in the middle of the first round, which would shock a lot of people. I mean, he can go. You have to talk about the Patriots for him. The Patriots could be a team, perhaps. There's quite a few teams in the middle of the first. I thought the Buccaneers probably the most realistic while being a surprise at the same time because they're looking for defensive linemen. They're looking for specifically versatile ones, like a Logan Hall who can play edge or, a defensive 3-4 end for them or even defensive tackle, which could help the Buccaneers across the board because they can use one more down lineman, defensive lineman, but then missing Jason Pierre-Paul, who was an edge rusher but moved around a bit. Was able to play on the defensive line because his strength, his power that he had kind of makes sense that Logan Hall kind of fills a lot of this here, and they did their homework on him as well. So you do not see that ever. There's a couple teams that I could see being sneaky and taking Logan Hall in the first there. So that's one of those players I'm really curious to see. I'm really looking out for here in day one of the NFL draft because I think he goes day one. Again, which could surprise some people. And then the 10th one, we're going to go Chiefs, go George Pickens. I even thought a guy like David Ojabo, pass rusher from Michigan for the Chiefs, could be a little surprising because people don't have him in the first anymore because, he tore his Achilles, had that injury, obviously. But George Pickens, the Chiefs did their homework on him, had a visit even after the Marquez Valdes-Scantling signing and obviously after the Juju Smith-Schuster signing. It's a little surprising because does he really fit the Chiefs type of receiver? Because they need speed. They bring in Juju, who's fast, but he's not like that speed receiver Valdes-Scantling is. I think everyone's mocking these speedy receivers for the Chiefs, the quick receivers. And you don't see Pickens, and you keep hearing Pickens could sneak in the end of first round, Packers or Chiefs possibly. And I think the Chiefs, I think it's realistic, even though it surprised people. Probably because is he that Chiefs-type receiver? So get that outside receiver here at 29 or 30, really. So and there's more surprise picks that aren't on here, guaranteed, will happen. There's always surprises. There's always off-the-wall picks. It's just how it is. It's what makes the draft pretty damn entertaining as well. So I'm very excited. This is probably the most unpredictable year that I could remember. So very excited to see what happens. It really starts at pick 1, too. There's a few options still at pick 1, so it just makes it pretty wild. A few more videos before the draft, including our final mock. We have updates and talk on Twitter. Sometimes I have a final mock that I release right before the draft on Twitter as well. Live streaming reactions, day one of the NFL draft. Right here on YouTube. So join us, like, subscribe. Make sure you turn notifications on so you don't miss that as well. But that's going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.